I'm so glad we can get together again like this. You do look rather dashing tonight. Sonic the Hedgehog 4, the video game released in 2010 for the Nintendo Wii, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3 to middling Metacritic reviews. Wait a another? What? I'm not texting my ex. What a preposterous presumption! That's ridiculous! Why would I be texting my ex? Look, there's a spaceship! What? I'm not cheating. You know what's cheating? Taking a level theme from a 19-year-old game, adding the word lost to it, and claiming it's something completely original. And let me tell you about a game that doesn't do any of that. Sonic as a series has been mostly well known for his 3D outings ever since 1998's Sonic Adventure. Nearly every single mainline entry has followed this similar 3D formula ever since. And it makes sense why. 3D games, especially back in the late 90s, were the hot new trend, and still are the standard for AAA releases these days. There's just a lot of freedom given to both developers and players here. So much more space to work with, so much more room for exploration, more room to craft diverse challenges, more opportunity for cinematic moments, and so much more. But at the same time, there is much more room for potential error within these spaces as well. Including clipping, improper collision, problematic camera angles, unresponsive controls, the list goes on. 3D games are great when they have enough time and love put into them, but man, so much can go wrong with them due to their high complexity. I can barely handle the third dimension in real life. How do you expect me to do it on a 2D screen while holding this thing? Look at this thing, for God's sake. So many games these days use every single button on here, and so many of these buttons aren't even standardized across games. This one attacks in Dark Souls, this one attacks in Sonic Frontiers, this one attacks in Kingdom Hearts, and this one attacks in... Wait, this isn't a control. My point is, while these games are great and most people have grown accustomed to the pros and cons of 3D games, sometimes it's good to just kick back and play something a bit simpler. And I think that's exactly why so many Sonic fans still lean toward the 2D entries. While not as open and cinematic as the more modern titles, these games are often much more polished, tightly designed, easier to control, and lack any bugs or glitches. For the most part. I've always personally leaned more towards the 3D side of Sonic, but I cannot deny the quality and joy brought to me by Sonic's best 2D ventures. Sonic Team really hit a winning formula right away on their first try with the very first game, because damn near every other Sonic game to have come out after it is built off of what that game introduced. High-speed, fast-paced gameplay, for about half of the adventure anyway. He's the fastest thing alive! Rolling into a ball to gain speed down hills, allowing for crazy far jumps, bouncing on baddies to take them out, fighting Eggman at the end of every stage, spikes, so many spikes, and Green Hill Zone, my favorite level. All of these elements combined set the standard for what 2D Sonic games would look like moving forward. Both of its sequels, Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, continued to build on what that game started by adding new mechanics, level gimmicks, and even introducing more story elements, which all add up to both entries still being considered some of the best in the entire series. But after the release of Sonic 3, 2D Sonic kinda died out for a while there. Sega had many strange 3D experiments with Sonic around this time, basically all throughout the life of their 32-bit console, the Sega Saturn. Most of these experiments failed for one reason or another, with some not even seeing the light of day until they finally hit a winning formula on their next console with Sonic Adventure. There were no mainline games released before Sonic Adventure, however. That's just 4 entire years of constant trash, and the damage with all of Sega's failed experiments was already done. They lost far too much money on the Sega Saturn, and the Dreamcast wasn't doing much better. So soon after the release of Sonic Adventure, it became clear to Sega that the Dreamcast was a complete financial failure, forcing the company to pull out of the console market almost immediately after the release of its sequel, Sonic Adventure 2. The fate of Sonic and Sega were left unknown for about 2 seconds until it was announced that they were going third-party and will start publishing their games across everyone else's consoles, including the Xbox, PlayStation 2, and even the Nintendo GameCube. Sega wanted to kick this new era for the company off with a bang, so they not only released an enhanced port of Sonic Adventure 2 for GameCube, but the first completely original 2D Sonic game since Sonic 3 on Game Boy Advance on the same day. No, Sonic Blast doesn't count. Pocket Adventure doesn't either. This game is called Sonic Advance! Even in a world where there is actually a game with the title Sonic 4, many people consider this game to be the real Sonic 4. Not me, obviously, but why is that? You know, besides the fact that Sonic 4 is just a mobile project that was ported to consoles that wasn't actually meant to be Sonic 4, but they changed the name for marketing purposes so it could sell better. I mean, what? Who said that? I didn't say anything. This was many people's first taste of the Hedgehog. Metaphorically, many people owned Game Boys compared to any of Sega's handhelds, so the audience for this game opened up significantly, and Sega knew that by making it as beginner-friendly as possible, by taking Sonic back to its 2D roots while also incorporating the updated character designs from the adventure games. This was a time of uncertainty for Sonic, so going back to something familiar that hasn't been seen in a little while was almost definitely refreshing for fans that didn't mesh so well with the adventure titles, while also introducing new fans to what Sonic was all about. At the most basic level. I, once again, don't actually have a lot of nostalgia or history with this one. I swear I'm not a hack. Please don't cancel me on Twitter. I first played this game near the tail end of my senior year of undergrad, when I decided to marathon all of the older handheld Sonic games I had never played before, because I barely had any time to play anything longer than an hour due to just how much shit I had going on at the time. And I remember enjoying this one the most compared to the other handheld titles, and even the other advanced games. I even played it with all 4 characters back to back to back before moving on to Advance 2. But haven't picked it back up since. To bring it back, there was a lot riding on this game at the time it released. Regardless of quality, this was the start of a new era for Sonic. Was it a worthwhile return to form, or did it just ride the coattails of its predecessors? Let's jump into the plot and find out. One day, Eggman ponders real hard about his next dastardly scheme until he decides, fuck it.
Maybe if I steal the Chaos Emerald, Sonic will never see that coming.
No way! I can't believe this!
So Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy all set out to stop him, without ever once interacting with each other until the very end of the game. Yeah, when I said they went back to basics with this one, I really meant it. This game somehow has less plot than even Sonic 1, and the only times it ever tries to add any amount of narrative significance, it's just something taken from another game. Eggman escaping into space, Sonic doing battle with him and then falling back to Earth while Tails catches him in his freefall. Yeah, that's from Sonic 2. A battle with Knuckles on Angel Island? That's Sonic 3. There's not even an opening cutscene or any flavor text to anything. This game's total lack of a premise is very strange. It just brings up so many questions. Why is Knuckles here? Shouldn't he be guarding the Master Emerald? Looks like he does a bad job because Eggman just has it in the bad ending, even though it's never addressed in the good ending. Why can't Tails follow Sonic without a cheat code? And why would Eggman try to enact the Sonic 1 plan again? It already didn't work in the past, so why would he try it again? It kinda reminds me of how insignificant Star Fox Zero feels in the grand scheme of that franchise, because it just reuses plot elements from previous games like that game does. It's not a super big deal, but it is something that bothered me after looking at this game again. But it's almost certainly very intentional. This game was meant to introduce new people to Sonic, so making a game that not only brings Sonic back to his roots in terms of gameplay, but also having the most fundamental story elements that make Sonic what it is was definitely intentional to bring people up to speed of what Sonic is all about and show off some of the most memorable moments from past games. Unfortunately, it's not 2001 anymore, so this complete lack of a unique plot in a series known for its storytelling is a bit disappointing looking back, and leaves this game without its own clear identity. If the story doesn't help set itself apart from the classics, the visuals definitely do at least. I don't really care for the backgrounds that much, but the character sprites are really fluid and nicely animated here. All 4 main characters look great, with most of their movements being super cool looking. They're also super expressive, especially in their victory animations. Sonic looks a bit dopey with his running animation though. Nothing about this looks natural at all, and I'm just glad they took the stick out of his ass in Advance 2. Jumping into the real game here, we start our adventure off by choosing one of the 4 main playable characters who are stuck with you until the very end, whether you like it or not. Sonic retains all of his moves from the older games, including bouncing off baddies, rolling down slopes to gain speed and defeat enemies, and make use of the spin dash to get a quick burst of speed. He also has a couple new moves up his sleeve this time, including this little air dash thing taken straight from Sonic Adventure, and this is one of my favorite techniques to pull off in this game, even if it doesn't have any homing properties like it does in Adventure. It's such a small thing, but it's so useful for quickly gaining speed out of a jump. Kind of like the drop dash now that I think about it. He also has this slide now, which I barely use, but hey, it's good against the 3rd boss, so at least it has a use. Tails and Knuckles are both glorified easy modes here, with them being able to fly or glide across levels, skipping the parts that makes them fun. I'm used to Tails being in easy mode, and he still facilitates that role here. He's also super cute in this game, just look at the little guy. Aww, oh shit. But Knuckles... what happened to Knuckles here, dude? Something I really enjoy about Knuckles in the other mainline 2D games is that he generally gets his own unique paths, and sometimes even entire levels that take advantage of his unique abilities that are often more difficult than Sonic's routes. But here they just kind of threw him in the game and didn't even gimp his jump like the other games, making his boss fights super easy. Very disappointing and makes his playthrough super boring to go through, especially since I already did Sonic and Tails playthrough right before this, so I was getting pretty sick of the game at this point. He was also the only one I didn't finish with because I got a game over at the final boss, and the final boss sucks, so I just said fuck it and moved on to Amy. Amy is next up to bat, and this is her first playable appearance in a 2D game. She plays very similarly to how she did in Adventure by exclusively attacking enemies with her hammer. She can't spin dash either, but can make use of a higher jump if needed, but I never really found a use for this. Needing to use her hammer to take out badniks actually makes her stand out quite significantly compared to the other heroes, and makes her playthrough a lot more fun compared to Tails and Knuckles in my opinion. She's unique, but still has to traverse levels like Sonic does without skipping over everything like the other 2 do. She's the actual hard mode here because she requires a degree of nuance the other heroes don't, making her playthrough a ton of fun. She's also the only character besides Sonic that can grind on rails. I guess that's a Hedgehog thing. Sonic has my favorite playthrough, besides the fact that he's my favorite character. The air dash is way too fun to use. Followed by Amy. Her hammer abilities set her apart, and even though I played as her last, I was much less burnt out replaying the game with her compared to Knuckles and Tails. Then Tails, he plays the role of an easy mode well, and it's just super cute. Oh, there he goes.
Damn it!
And then Knuckles, it just confuses me why he's even here besides for the sake of variety. The levels themselves are simply about getting to the end. Unless you hate yourself and go after the Chaos Emeralds. We start off in Neo Hill Zone to begin with. Wait, sorry, there's a little smudge in my screen. Sorry. Oh, wait, Neo Green Hill Zone? What does Neo even mean in this context? Why not just call it something else like Sandy Hill?
Green Hill's looking a lot more like Sand Hill right now.
Okay, never mind, don't call it that. Joking aside, this was in a time where Sega reusing Green Hill for every single game wasn't actually an issue, and even if the name is the same, the actual theme is clearly different here. It's a nice cozy opening level, introducing all the essential mechanics you'll need for the rest of the game, but overall playing it safe. Secret Base is much more like it. This level feels like it's completely its own thing, featuring gimmicks unique to Sonic Advance with zip lines, swinging hooks, and these mechanics are meshed with level design that both incentivizes speed and exploration. Honestly, the whole game is good at this, so I'm not even going to mention it for the other levels because this is a pretty consistent aspect of this game in general. This is what I'd like to see in a sequel. Introducing mechanics never before seen that make the game truly its own thing. I just hope the rest of the game can hold up and, well, never mind, fuck me, I screwed up. Casino Paradise isn't a bad level, but it just straight up reuses the casino aesthetic from Sonic 2, and reuses so many elements from Sonic 2 and 3. This wouldn't be as big of a problem if, well, I guess I just gotta rip off this band-aid now, huh? I don't think I've ever enjoyed the casino levels in any Sonic game. I'm sorry. They are always such a pace breaker with the most annoying gimmicks and level design that is counterintuitive to the rest of the game. I don't understand why this is such an imperative part of the series that always needs to be brought back. Get over your gambling addiction. We already went over the fact you're underage. Ice Mountain is nothing to write home about either. It's a fine level that's fun to play through, but also reuses ideas from Sonic 3, which again isn't really a problem as it's still fun here, but still worth pointing out. The boss here is a real stinker though. Eggman realized that maybe pogo sticking Sonic to death wasn't the best move looking back, and instead decides to actually use Sonic's swimming ability, or lack thereof, to his advantage and drown the fucker. Definitely the most clever fight in the game, as playing with Sonic here is super difficult, where every other character has a really easy time, which I think is a great attention to detail that highlights a weakness of Sonic compared to his friends. Next up is Angel Island Zone, which is one of my favorite levels actually. It's definitely a step up in terms of challenge and length, with lots of different paths to the finish, and also has a lot of level-specific gimmicks that I enjoy quite a bit, even if it sprite swaps some old ones. The paths are a lot of fun to go through. Look, this one even leads you to an extra life at the very end of Act 1.
Damn it!
Good thing I got the life! This is also where you fight that Knuckles robot, which is pretty random, but is the first case of the Knuckles and Knuckles meme, probably.
Ooh, a clone of myself.
Angel Island is then followed up by Egg Rocket, and oh boy do people hate this level. It's so long, so many traps, and a whole lot of...
Damn it!
a whole lot of that. And I love it. We're not really told why, but the entire premise of this stage has Sonic climbing up this rocket as it's launching into space, needing to get further and further to the top as it's leaving its parts behind, making for such a cool set piece. There are 3 whole sections you need to climb up, and each one changes the background, so you really feel like you're making progress as you climb up. I know people really don't like how much more difficult this stage is compared to the rest of the game, but I actually really enjoy it. I know there are a lot of beginner traps here, but that's kind of something I really enjoy about Sonic games in general. Learning from the mistakes I made in my first playthrough to get through tough stages with ease while feeling cool while doing it is something I love about this series in general, and this stage is the perfect example of that design mentality. I also hate myself enough to enjoy Dark Souls, so please take this opinion with a grain of salt. Sonic games aren't generally that difficult, so having an actually really difficult stage to almost cap off the finale here is awesome. My favorite level in the game, and one of the best Sonic levels in general for the set piece alone. I've noticed that there's a trend of me liking Sonic climbing large heights with high stakes, Even the music here is super catchy and fits the mood really well. This soundtrack in general has its ups and downs. Nothing super bad here, but I really enjoy this track, Neo Green Hill, Secret Base, and Ice Mountain Act 2. Everything else is just kind of meh, though. It's not a bad soundtrack, but it's really nothing noteworthy for Sonic. Egg Rocket is then followed up by Cosmic Angel Zone, which is an alright level. It's much shorter and much easier than Egg Rocket, which is a bit of a letdown after such a cool climactic level, but it's fine enough for what it is, and the boss is pretty challenging here. Using the air dash against the boss's projectiles is my biggest favorite though. Super cool. We then make it to the X Zone in space, where Eggman really tries to validate his genius by reusing 2 of the worst inventions he's ever made, before once again using that 300 IQ of his to pray to RNGesus to create the worst fight in any 2D Sonic game ever. Holy hell, this fight isn't that hard to win, but why was it made like this? He just uses any move he wants at any time with no tell whatsoever at completely random intervals. It's like an Eggman fanfic written by Eggman where he can just do whatever the hell he wants. He decides that, okay, Sonic's dead now. Terrible, terrible fight, but eventually all of our heroes win and then fall back to Earth. And Knuckles died though, and Knuckles also died. And that about wraps up Sonic Advance. I'll see you guys in the next one. Yeah, I just wrapped up the video. Oh yeah, I absolutely left out the Chaos Emeralds. Yeah, I'm still free tonight. Wait, is that thing still on? Shit! Yes, there are Chaos Emeralds to collect in this game, and like so many of the other 2D entries, and even some 3D ones, they insist on locking these things behind pace-breaking, not even remotely fun, and bullshit difficult special stages. I don't know if this is a hot take or whatever, but I can't stand special stages in basically any Sonic game. Even Sonic 2, which is one of my favorites. Getting the Chaos Emeralds in these games sucks so much. You waste so much time not playing the real game and instead mastering something that is simply not fun to play. And the best ending is often locked behind these things as well, which just sucks, and this game is no different. I guess Sonic Team wanted to try hoverboarding out before making Sonic Riders, but forgot that you're supposed to, hover, not fall, but that's alright. They'll give it another shot, I'm sure. Hopefully they'll I'll do better next time, then fuck it up the time after that. What? You fall down these tunnels and try to collect rings, which sounds simple in theory, but it's near impossible to make out the distance the rings are in relation to Sonic. You know, being on a 2D plane and all. So I just didn't bother. There's supposed to be a supersonic battle on the moon after you collect them, but uh-oh, the moon is gone. I blew it up, so I guess not. Never mind. Okay, moving on. Sonic Advance had a lot riding on it. It was the first brand new Sonic game on a non-Sega system. It was the first mainline 2D game developed, at least in part, by Sonic Team since Sonic 3, and aimed to lay the groundwork for every future handheld Sonic game. So did it succeed? Kinda. I think the game is a great jumping on point in the series, as it's not super long, it's very replayable, and introduces what Sonic is all about in a more modern aesthetic compared to the Genesis games. The level design is overall very fast and fluid, with some bullshit littered throughout, but is overall very fun. The level gimmicks introduced for this title are all great, but it does reuse a lot of old ones. But if you're a new fan, you wouldn't even know that anyway, so it works out even then. And even then, it doesn't rely on those things super heavily. The lack of any story is weird and confusing because the cutscenes and moments that are there make little to no sense for anyone playing, however. There's really no getting around that. Even little zone transitions like Sonic 3 had would help this game out tremendously. So do I think this game deserves to be the true Sonic 4? No, definitely not. It's a good game, it really is, especially as an easy to pick up and play handheld entry, but it is also a step back from Sonic 3 in so many ways. The lack of plot, only 6 zones, which is the same amount as Sonic 1, I might add. Every character going through the same exact levels and routes, no level transitions, the reuse of level themes and mechanics from older games, among other issues. There's a reason it's called Sonic Advance and not Sonic 4, and that's because it was never meant to be, but it was the baseline that led to every future 2D game in the franchise, and for that, it should be remembered. We wouldn't have gotten classics like Sonic Rush without this game, and that's important to keep in mind when this game is brought up in discussion. I must admit though, I think I like this game a bit less than my initial playthroughs, so it's gonna go down a couple of spots. We'll see if the other advanced games will stay ahead when I play them, or if I just have rose-tinted glasses of those games. Who's to say? If Sonic Advance isn't the real Sonic 4, then maybe Sonic 4 was the real Sonic 4 all along. You know, I'm gonna go back to dinner. I'll see you guys. Are you happy now? I came back, and Sonic Advance isn't the real Sonic 4 either. Yeah, no, you're right. I want to break up. Oh right, I forgot the Chow Garden. Fuck the Chow Garden.